How's it going? How's it going, everybody? This is another special edition of the Dad Podcast, and this one's special because this young lady here, man, I mentioned her name, and all of a sudden, everyone knew who I was talking about, and all I did was see one post. And shout out to Soroya for introducing me to her. And the way Rhode Island works and the way this world works is I actually grew up with one of her sons, and I know her other from the coaching world, but I never met her personally until recently. I had the honor to bring out and get introduced to her book, which she'll be able to tell you more about. And this is only the first of the collection. It's actually the second. And me not knowing, I almost grabbed the second, not knowing the first. And her being the perfectionist that she is, as we just talked about, made sure I knew you can't read the second without the first. She schooled me on it. The wife started reading it, and she's blown away already. I need to hit the books more. I'm not the best of book readers, but it's something that's I need to start working on. But the way Rhode Island works and the way this world is, man, we need something that's more positive. We need people who set and goals and go on and get it. And she'll tell you more about her story. But when she told me the way her story was, and she did it all on her own. That's what I love about it. Because so many times people have dreams, but they're saying they can't do it, or they need this, they need that. We need more people that just go out there and get it. And that's why I'm honored to have her on to help tell her story and encourage more people who are having dreams but afraid to go do it. Just go do it. And that's why I'm honored to have Mrs. Moore on. So welcome. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going very well. I must say I was excited for today. So I am I love doing stuff like this. Is only my second interview, believe it or not. So but I love it. I love it. And it's going well.
I know we talked a little bit off about just how we trying to link up last week and just our schedules, the world schedule, everything going crazy. And I know you having two sons, the verdict yesterday. How was that when you heard that verdict come out?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that just brought so many emotions out of me. Like I was already going through a lot with having two sons and a husband. Every day just praying that God would keep them safe as well as everybody else's family. But yesterday it almost was like the air of just justice for a moment to be released and I can breathe just a little bit. I was very excited and very thankful for that family. I prayed for that family to get justice. So for me it was a big release and I was very happy for the verdict. I was very happy and like I said I felt a sense of calmness and a sense of okay, everything's gonna be all right.
Yeah, I know, like I said, like I never actually had the honor to meet you, but knowing your son, I know how proud you gotta be of him, seeing what he's doing in the culture world and seeing what Junior's doing, everything that he's doing, and being just that proud mom. How is it seeing your two young boys grow up in this crazy world?
Listen, let me tell you, I was a teenage mom, so I had both of my sons. I had one at 16 and one at 18, and me and their father's been holding it down ever since. We've been together for 42 years, and that's for us. For many people, it's like what? And like, yeah, 42 years. We've been holding it down since we were teenagers. So to see my sons now as grown men, one being a pastor and one being an artist he's a comedian, he's a father. Um, I'm super proud of both of them. I can't say no more or no less about their greatness because we can only as parents pour into our children and we can only pray that they will absorb some of the good things that we have poured into them and not let the world get a hold of them and guide them in a different direction. So as a mother, I am super proud of Alex Jr. and Ramel Moore. I am super proud of both of them and I pray daily for them. I can only imagine during this time growing up in this culture right now how hard it is to be a black young man. Because back in my day growing up, it wasn't this much going on. It just wasn't. So but I'm super proud of them. I'm super proud of them. I can't. There's words can't express how I feel about both of my boys.
I know, like I have a relationship more so with Junior, and he's a Renaissance artistic guy. You give him anything, he'll turn it into gold. And I see that's what you're doing with that book. Now, is that something you instill when it comes to the arts in him? You take the credit for that?
Well, I tell both of my sons. I take credit for all the goodness, all the goodness, the artistic skills. But the most biggest thing that I really am proud of as a parent, and I will brag about it because a lot of times we don't hear positive Black women bragging about their children. So I'm gonna brag about the good things that we as Black mothers do for our children. And one of the most proudest moment for me is teaching them about the things of God and who He is and how He, with all the talents and gifts that they have, will show them how to manifest that in this world and how to utilize it and make good, not just for themselves but for others. So that's my biggest thing to be proud of it. And not to take away, because they're individual and they have their gifts, but for me what I did is I watered those gifts. If my son wanted to take apart my vacuum cleaner, I let him take it apart, and sometimes he couldn't put it back together. It was okay. If my other son wanted to, he wanted to be the basketball, whatever on his team, I was there cheering them on. So for me as a mother, whatever their dreams and goals were, I was their cheerleader. I was their biggest cheerleader. So to take credit, I say yes because I did more. Uh, Uplifting for them in their talents than saying no, you can't do that. I would never tell them when they were younger that they couldn't do anything that they put their minds to.
And now, how was that feeling when they became your cheerleader when you put that first book out and the spotlight was no longer on them, but it was on you now, and it was your turn to get the shine.
Oh, for real, my sons were proud. I mean, my son, but my oldest Ramel was like, "Ma, you really wrote a book." I'm like, "Yeah, I told you I was gonna write a book." And usually, when your mom tells you she's gonna do something, she usually follows through with it. And my other son, June, he was like, "Ma, just order 100 copies. I'm gonna sell them for you."
Hmm.
So I just got him some copies, and he did his thing with them, and they were proud of me. They were very proud of me. Somewhat surprised because they were like, I got a lot of things going on in my life, and for me to be able to sit down and write 2 books in one year, yeah, they were amazed about that. They were superly amazing. They were like, wow. If my mom is definitely my hero, so I know if she can do it, whatever she puts her mind to, I can too. So they were really proud of
Now, was you nervous? Because I know, like, we're putting that first book out there, you're gonna get feedback, you're gonna get people saying it, but when it's yours, it don't matter really. But was you nervous on the reaction?
I was. So let me just say real briefly, my first book, Silence No More, that book was done under my publishing company, um 1019 Media Group. Jarrell Grimes, he was the person who actually from his publishing company got me started in writing and producing my book. He was the one who said, because I wasn't sure how to do it, and so he was like, "I got you." He was like, "Just write your book, get your manuscript, send it to me, and I'll make it happen." So I want to give a big shout out to 1019 Media Group, Jarrell Grimes. Thank you so much for helping me get started on this journey of writing and putting my artistic skills on paper so I can share it. My second book, I once I did my first book, I asked him, I said, "Hey, I want to learn how to do this on my own. I
Mhm.
just want to learn. I'm a learner. I've been to school all my life. I'm still in school." And so he taught me. He taught me. And as soon as he taught me, I ran with it. And I think it was probably like 2 months after he taught me, I wrote my second book.
Hmm.
And I did all that on my own. All he did was lay down the foundation and told me what I need to do, and I ran with it. And the second book is all me. I wrote it, I edited it, I did the copy to front, drop the mic. I did that's mine. I mean, I did the whole thing, and so I learned it, and I went with it. The first book, I was nervous because I did get feedback, and I didn't get a lot of good feedback. But I did get some good feedback. I just didn't get a lot. Um, and it was okay. So I took the feedback. I listened to some I just kind of like, okay, that's their opinion. But the second book was my baby. Like, it didn't matter what nobody said. That
Mhm.
I fell in love with the second book, and I don't know why, but I just did.
A lot of times too, though, like hearing that negative feedback is sometimes what motivates you to go even harder. Because if everyone says it's great, sometimes you don't work as hard.
That's right.
So,
Absolutely.
so that's what makes people go harder. And I know when my wife read the first one, like she said, it came from like a dark place, and it was very dark. And I was like telling her when I met you, and even talking to you now, you're always smiling, and no, it always seems so cheerful and happy. But then the book seemed dark. Is it hard tapping into a dark place when you just seem like you just glow all the time?
Well, let me tell you, just let's give you a little background. So with the first book comes from I work in the field of working with hurt people. So let's just first recognize that the field that I work in, I deal with a lot of hurt people. So a lot of my stories come from that. A lot of my stories in the first book, Silence No More, come from hurt people. They also come from personal experiences. So for me, our outlet is what we need in order to not hurt anymore or to feel someone else's pain, because I'm good for feeling other people's pain, but I'm also good for bringing them light. So when I smile and you see this brightness on me, it's because when I see someone else sad, I want them to be able to tap in to my joy. Even if their life is not that great or hasn't been that great, I want them to be able to absorb something good from me. So the first book really came from a dark place, from dark people who lived in a dark place.
Mm,
And working in the field that I work in, which is somewhat like social work, mentor, advocacy, I do a little bit of all that. I meet a lot of people who's been hurting. And so I took some of the stories, and I'm not saying their personal stories, but I took some of the
yeah.
things that I've counteracted with them, and I kind of put it in the book. So maybe somebody else will read that and be like, you know what? I thought I was the only one who been through that.
Hmm. And it was like I had a young lady on earlier, and she's doing a GoFundMe for day one. That's the sexual abuse place,
They won very well.
and they're doing great. And so I seen she was doing that GoFundMe, so I wanted to help her out. Come on and talk about the GoFundMe. And I never knew that she was doing the GoFundMe because of personal experience.
Mhm.
And she's still in high school, and she's going in front of the board, and she's talking about it. And she's, I believe, 17. And I asked her what gave her the strength to go out there and talk about it. She said it's her story. Not gonna let anyone else control her story. She's gonna speak about it and tell her story.
Absolutely.
That just comes from a different strength to be able to do that, especially at a young age.
Uh,
And she never knew who would need that or who else. And your books can do the same thing because a lot of times people look for an outlet, whether it be a song, whether it be poetry or a book. So have you gotten feedback from people coming to you saying that it helped them?
I have. I actually so I had an empowerment program before COVID hit, and my empowerment program was for women, for young women from the ages of 9 all the way up to 21, whoever. It didn't matter, but it was open to whoever needed that to be empowered. I believe in empowerment because I feel when you are empowered, you pretty much can do whatever you want. You're like a cape that nobody sees. You have a cape on, and you're like, yeah, life is going to throw rocks at me, but I'm going to catch those rocks and I'm going to build a bridge. So
Mhm.
for me, it was like once I started the empowerment program and COVID hit, my empowerment program shut down. And then I wrote my book, and then I kind of passed it on to some of the young ladies that were in that program, and they read it. Some of the guardians read it, and they gave me like the best feedback ever. Like one young lady, she said, I read a story in there and it sounded like mine.
Mhm.
And she said, I felt like if that person could survive it, so can I. She was like, do you have any tips for me? Like, do you have any, coping skills that I can, use when I'm feeling a little anxious? And so I feel like a lot of people who came to me, especially those people, like I said, that's in that dark place, they read this book and it actually brought light to their world.
Mhm.
And not all of them came to me and asked me for advice or whatever, but they did give me like, Miss Liz, they call me Miss Liz. I read that book and oh my God, I understand now. So yeah, but then we have the other people who read it and they said, that book really depressed me and it really brought me down because I didn't know what happened to so and so. There was a story in here. I didn't know if they survived it, blah, blah, blah. I said, so, a lot of times I get the feedback and I have to take it and say, I'm sorry it made you feel that way. But if you want to know more about the story, we can talk about it.
Mhm. And sometimes too, hearing like the dark stories of other people, it makes you realize how could you have it too. So
Hmm.
just hearing that, like you hear something dark, or you got to sit back and reflect on your life and be like, wow, I thought I had it bad. Like it's raining, or I can't go outside and play. My life's really not as bad as I thought. And
Right.
especially at times like this, we need stuff that encourages us, but we also see stuff that tells us we got it way better than we think sometimes. Because
Hmm.
your stories, they'll tell what people are going through, and you're like, does that really happen? Or and some of these stories could be happening right down the street, and you don't even know it.
Right.
And you being in those the advocate groups and the empowerment groups, where do you get your sense of like you need to cope with something? So where do you go for that for yourself?
Well, since just really honestly, the last year and a half been really, really tough for me. So I'm a writer. I'm an artist. I do a lot of what you want to say reflection. So I have another book coming out. It's a devotional, and in that devotional, it talks a lot about my last year experience with COVID and with this racism and all that. So I reflect a lot in writing. I take everything pretty much in writing. I'm also an avid runner. Like I love running. So when I can get a chance to get out running, I will do miles. That's a big release for me. That's my time to talk to God and to let go whatever is I'm feeling. Running is just releases a lot of endorphins, that negative endorphins, and it just releases you. So those are the two things that for me, honestly, that's what I've been doing, and also trying to be around like-minded people,
Mhm.
and also people that is going to lift me up, and also be there for others that need to be lifted up. I think for me, helping others make me feel a lot better about um, my life. Because if I'm not helping anyone, I feel like, why am I here?
Mm. That's the same reason why I do so much coaching and so much giving back. Like I talk to a lot of middle schools and I go back and I speak to them. And like one thing that's so tough right now when you touched on like the racism going on, so you could talk about that and then you talk about the religious aspect and like combining the two. Because being in having a religious background, God's given us so much, but then you have the other side of it. How does those two like bump heads with you when it comes to your writing?
Oh well, you know, it's almost like if you think about it, what's happening in this world has already been told. It was supposed to happen.
Hmm.
So if you really know the word and you really understand and have a relationship with the Most High, with Jesus Christ the Savior, whatever anybody calls him, if you have a relationship with that person, that unseen being, he kind of lets you know, um, yeah, this is what's supposed to be happening. And at the end of it, at the end of the day, only thing you can be is accountable for yourself. So
Hmm.
you have to really dig deep within yourself and not fall into the things of the world. So the racism and everything, I've always been a part of that. Always. It's nothing new to me. It's just on the 10th power now.
Hmm.
So um I'm learning how to not be afraid for others. Um like I George Floyd could have been my uncle, you know. So that's the thing I am more challenged with. So when you say, how do I deal with it? Any challenges that come, I have to just pass it on to God and be like, God, I don't know what to do with this, so I'm giving it to you.
Now, when you talk about doing your devotional book coming up next, now do you use your son for a lot of advice for that, or you just do that yourself, or you talk to Ramel about that being of having a pastor background?
No, because Ramel comes from a pastor's background. So his father was a pastor for almost 28 years. He's still a pastor, but he pastors in a different type of way. He doesn't pastor in a church. He's more like he'd rather go out on the my husband rather go out on the corner where homeless people are at, or someone who's addicted to drugs, or even into the ACI. He's done pastoring in the ACI. So he doesn't like the building pastoring anymore. He likes to go out into the world and reach those that need it. So my dedication to God came long before any of this writing. And so I always kept journals, and I started reading some of my journals. In my journals, I got a revelations. Those are devotionals. And the reason why they're devotionals because I'm writing about a time about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, my grandmother had died and how God brought me through that. Everybody experienced death.
Hmm.
So that's how it became a devotional because I wrote about it. I had scripture backing up what God says he will help me through it. And then I just started looking at all the pages. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize the things I was writing were devotionals that will be able to help somebody else one day.
I know reading a couple of like the small poems that I had, they almost have like that musical, not musical, but have that lyrical background with poetry. Did you ever think about doing audiobooks too?
I definitely thought about doing audiobooks. I really want to do spoken word. Like
Hmm.
I
That
want like I did a spoken word the other day. Well, actually it was yesterday right after the verdict. Something I don't know. I just was words were
felt
coming
it.
to me.
Yeah, you felt it.
And I just started, because I was like accountability. Like, what are you talking about accountability? What about all those 4,000 men that was hung on the trees? Who's going to be accountable for them? Like
Mm.
the words were just flowing. So for me, like I always want to be able to deliver a message and not just have words.
Mm.
I want there to be message behind what I'm saying so people can understand that I'm not just a spoken word artist. I'm just not a poet. I'm not a person who write poetry. I'm a person who is trying to tell you a story and come to a conclusion.
Mm. Because I read one. I'm sorry I forgot the name of it, but it was talking about the rundown shoes or broken shoes, and it was talking about no one can tell your story unless they walk in your shoes, and
Yes.
that's something I always live by. Because an our expression in the military was moccasins. You can't tell unless you walk in someone's moccasins, and it's the same thing. A lot of times, when I first seen Silence No More, I didn't know what it was about, so I had to like just read the forward on it, just understand it
Mm-hmm.
going into it. There's so many stories in there, small stories and small poems that you just throw in like little by little, and it gets the reader in.
Yep. Absolutely. And that was my goal. That was my goal. There's um there's a poetry in Silence No More that I wrote for my grandmother. And I don't if you notice in Silence No More, there's no titles.
Mm.
Because I feel people should always read and have their own
Your
meaning.
own interpretation.
Right. So
Hmm.
why would I put a title to something that someone may read that and be like, well, I didn't get that from that. That's why I left it untitledless. But I wrote a poem in here about a woman who had a frown, upside down smile. That was my grandmother. My
Mm.
grandmother, she could be the happiest person in the world, but her her smile facial expression was downwards. It never was up. Like I smile and you can see my smile. So I wrote that for my grandmother. And she was a blessing to me. My grandmother helped raise me. So she was a blessing to me. So that's when you say I bring people in, I want to bring people in. And one of that poetry, that what particular one I'm talking about, that was one of the ones I got a lot of comments on.
And a lot of times too, it's probably even you won't even know, but like somebody like ones that you thought like I kind of threw this one together, or this was one of the ones that I wouldn't expect the feeling for. Those are the ones you get sometimes, and then sometimes the ones you put the most feeling into, you may not, because you never know who gets the feeling out of it. You're saying that's why you have the no title, because you never know who you impact the way you do or what your words are. Sometimes I was just seeing a quote sometimes about reading a book at different times in your life. Because
Mm-hmm.
you can read the same book
Yep.
5 years apart and get something different
So,
out of it.
yep. Yeah, absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I'm a reader. Like I'm an avid reader, and I am an ancestor of Maya Angelou and all those greats that came before me. Like I embrace their spirit. Like I can't probably do anything like Toni Morrison or, but that's not my goal. My goal is to carry on the ancestors' greats. So to be able to inspire somebody, that's my goal.
And the crazy part is, as soon as I had mentioned that you're gonna be coming on, I had two of my friends like loved it. They can't wait because they read your book and it's inspiring. And that's what. And I know like a lot of people like there's great authors around and there's great people around in Providence. And the thing is, a lot of times they don't know about them.
Yeah.
And all it took was social media was Soraya to post it one time, and then I found out. And that's what it's about, is just spreading the word, and it's like spreading great authors. And that's why I want to have you on and give you your roses, because when I said your name, everyone I know who read your book was like, oh my God, I can't wait. She's powerful. She's amazing. And I want to spread it to people who don't know your story, don't know your book, and give them a chance to hear about it and make them go out there and get it. Because you just being local, all I did was reach out and you were like, you're local, I'll bring it to you. And
Absolutely.
we need people like that, spreading great people like you.
Absolutely. And I just want to add, because one thing that I didn't take well is that when we was talking about earlier, um there is some light in this book. And I know there's a lot of dark, but there's some light in here. I just want poetry. I talk about being a beautiful person, and how I said, and I was trying to find it, said, you don't like me, you don't like what you see, but I'm beautiful inside and out. Like, get to know me. Like, it's like things like that that will instill of somebody with low self-esteem.
Mhm.
Like, just love your curves, love your difference, love your whatever it is about you. And the person that takes the time to say they don't like you, or they don't see beauty in you, those are the people that you have to learn. And it's a lesson to learn to be like, they make you stronger. So
Mhm.
they're not telling you to bring you down. They're saying they don't like you, or they don't think you're beautiful, to make you stronger. So I wrote that. That's in Silence No More as well, and that's a light. And I got a lot of remarks on that one too, about bringing self-esteem up for men and women. So I just wanted to add that on there, because that dark part of the book I see it, but I also see some light, a glimpse of light through a lot of it as well.
And especially with the second book and the other book coming, a lot of times when you have those glimpses that you throw out there, people want to hear more. People want, like, they keep going back for more. Now, are you already getting I know you said the third book's coming, but people start asking you about the stories and asking you like what happened in next. Do you want to keep going with that same story, or do you make them go on to the next one? So how do you
Well,
do it?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, with the kind of what there's like a couple different short stories in there. So when they start asking, how you mentioned earlier about wanting to know what happened next, do you just leave them waiting, or how do you deal with that?
So that's my goal. See, I'm very intentional. So so my first book, I wrote a story about Donnell and Crystal, about two couples falling in love. That story was inspired by me being in Rhode Island College. I had a best friend. um she was falling in love, and they're still together. Actually, they're in South Carolina now, but that story came from that. So it was about Donnell and Crystal. People was blowing me up. They were like, when they got this book, Silence No More, yo, I need to know what happened with Donnell and Crystal. I said, it's coming. And so, in Silence No More the sequel, I make sure I put continuation to that story in Silence No More the sequel. And I made it the first story in here. So they didn't even have to wait. And
Mhm.
and yes, that story continues. To answer your question, so Silence No More is going to be a series. So
Mhm.
this book never will stop. So once you see Silence No More, the sequel, the next one that's going to be dropping is going to be Silence No More, and it's going to be the book of poetry. And then
Gotcha.
it's going to be Silence No More, short stories, and more. So it's just going to continue on, continue on. And some of the stories in, some of them don't. You have a new story in here called Silence No More. The sequel, you have a story, Memoirs of a Pastor's Wife.
Mhm.
As you heard me say earlier, I was a pastor's wife. I still am. And I talk a lot about things that had happened in the church. Some of it's exaggerated, some of it's true. So that's another story that will be in the next book, the continuation.
I'm sorry if I forget the story. I know just loosely, the one with the car accident. She was telling me that with the car accident, and then she called me as she's reading, and she's like, "Did this really happen? Do you know who this is?" I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "Could you? What happens next?" And she started going, and she said she was gonna read a couple of pages, but then she couldn't put it down. And then
Yeah.
she's asking me, "Is this a real person? Did this happen?" She felt, and she, "What happens next?" I'm like, "I don't know. Keep on reading." And so you grab the people's attention, and I know it's definitely intentional, and that's a great thing to have. And just seeing like the layout, the way you space everything out, I think it draws people in even more. Because if you have so many, just line by line by line, sometimes people just see like, oh, turn a page and so many lines are like, I'll read one more page. But the way you spaced that out, I know it was you being a perfectionist, as you mentioned, and paying attention to every detail. You had to have done that on purpose.
Yeah. And let your wife know that is a true story.
Oh,
Most of my stories and poems, like I said, they actually came from somebody, my own personal or someone else's that I was close to's life. So a lot of inspiration came from real life experience, and that is a true story. The story is a little exaggerated. Never use anyone's name. I would never do that. But the story is a little exaggerated, but it's almost exactly how things happen.
like hearing all these stories, like just I know Tyler Perry's out there. You gotta give him a run for money. And right now, get Trinity out there and do a screenplay because these could be a great screenplay coming up. Did that ever run through your mind making a play out of it?
I thought about it so many times. I thought about screenwriting and just trying to come up with what they call monologues, because
Mhm.
I love monologues too. Um, but yeah, that would be awesome. Like I would love to do a play. A I would love to connect with somebody who does that so I can learn more about it. I'm all about learning. But yeah, I think that's a great idea, Will. I would love to do that.
I mean, I don't know. I personally don't know it, but I know there's definitely. I mean, I could just see like at Trinity how they have, or even AS220 somewhere where they do plays and the concept of it. Like your words are powerful. They need to be heard by more people. And this is the platform. Just trying to spread that word. And I know I want to get more into the book, and I want to start. I definitely have to read more. But for someone who hasn't read it, or someone who's going to pick it up, if you had to explain it to them, what would be your best way to explain the book for them?
Well, I would say with Silence No More, I would say please start there, because you always want a starting point, and your starting point would always be your beginning. So I say start with Silence No More, and I would tell them the book is about life, and it's about life that you don't may have not experienced or know no one who has experienced. But once you read Silence No More, you'll know each individual as they are. So Silence Some More is about life, other people's life that you may one day encounter, or maybe one day may not encounter, but at least you'll know their story.
Hmm, definitely. And you said the next book. When can they expect that next book?
So Devotional Journey is called Journey. That's coming out. I want to have that. I was trying to have it out for Mother's Day because um I really thought it would be a great Mother's Day gift. Unfortunately, my time did not allow me to do that. Like I told you earlier, I do all my work myself. I do all the editing and everything, and I'm a perfectionist. So I got behind, and I'm looking at probably we're going into May. I'm looking at probably around June 1st.
My birthday is June 2nd, so that's perfect.
Oh, okay, okay. So
Summer.
you're a June baby, like my son Alex.
Yeah, Gemini's rule the world right now. We're everywhere.
Yes, yes. Okay.
I mean, it's perfect for summer readings right around the corner. Nothing better than laying on the beach or laying in the backyard with a book and just reading away.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then you have two more books following behind that before the year's out. I will have a total of three books out. So I'll have a book, The Silence No More, the book of poetry, and then I'll either be coming out, because I have all the manuscripts written now. I just gotta put them all together. I have Forget Me Not and Letter to My Mother. Those books will be coming out as well.
It just seems like your grind never stops, and that's so impressive. I know you work all day and you're doing everything you have to do, and you 5 books already, just still going. Do you ever get time? Just I know you do your running, but you ever get time just to breathe it all in and enjoy what's coming out of it?
I do. I let me tell you, I embrace it every day. I'm thankful. I'm so humbly grateful. But I do get to enjoy it, because you have to remember I'm the first reader of what's being written. So I'm like, when I read it, as I'm writing it, I am in awe. I'm like amazed. Like I'm taking in. So yeah, I get to enjoy it. I'm the first one to actually bite the fruit. So yeah.
Yeah, because we finished up our football season today, and I was talking to one of the parents, and she's like, "Do you realize you haven't lost a game in 3 years?"
Wow.
It
That's
slips.
it.
Sometimes it slips your mind because you're constantly, as soon as one game's over, it's to the next game. And then when the last game's over, you're on to the next season. So sometimes you don't get a chance to sit back and appreciate it. And like being an author, one book's done and you're on to the next one and you're on to the next one. So definitely find the time to like sit back and look at the book and appreciate it. It's definitely got to be a joyous feeling.
Absolutely. And I am enjoying this journey. I am. Some of the journey is sad, some of the journey is lonely, some of this journey is joyful, some of it's happy. But for the most part, I'm loving it.
And definitely, so we're almost going to wrap up. So I'm going to ask you some quick rapid fire questions, some fun ones. We always like to end on a positive, smiling note. And the first one's always from my son. He's a big video game Fortnite guy. So he has me ask everybody: you're on a desert island. You got to survive with you and 5 people for 1 week. Who you taking?
Five people. Oh,
It
okay.
can be any 5 people. You don't have any 5 people.
Okay. My mom, my sons, that's three, my husband, and I gotta find somebody who's creative. My daughter-in-law.
And you're all done. You get to go home, have any meal you want from anywhere in the world. What are you having?
Oh man. Any meal?
Any meal.
I think I'm gonna go with some shrimp and grits.
Shrimp and grits? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you get to go to a concert with any musician of all time, dead or alive, any 3 artists. Who's performing or singing?
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Music is everything right now for me. Okay. So I'm definitely gonna go see Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see Stevie Wonder,
Mm-hmm.
and my female artist is such a toss up because I love me some Mary, but I also love me some Jill Scott. So
Okay.
I've seen Mary already. I'm gonna see Jill Scott.
Nice, nice. And this one's going to be a tough one for you to answer, I know for sure. There's a lot of great books you read, a lot of great artists. You can only pick four. Your four favorite writers or poetry artists of all time.
Okay, so I have my favorite, which I read almost every day, is Langston Hughes.
Mm,
Love Langston. Maya Angelou,
yeah.
Toni Morrison, um, and just one more. I'm trying to think of his name. He is a wonderful author. Um, Last name is Dickerson. I think the first name is Eric.
Okay.
Yeah.
And and finally, right now we touched on it earlier. The world's going crazy right now, but we keep on breathing a sigh of relief, and every time we do, something else happens. So we just keep trying to find the light.
Yeah.
And your book is what brings that light, and your smile and your radiance brings that light. And you put out 2 great books, but you put out 2 better gifts, and that's your sons. I know you're extremely proud of them, and I'm proud to call them my friend. And they're 2 great young men. And what your book's gonna do is encourage people to go out there and chase their dream, just like you started, and you finished 2 already, and you're on to the next one. But for that young kid or that young girl who needs that encouragement, who needs that motivation, what do you tell them?
Oh boy. What I would tell them is, if you don't ever think that you have to do it alone, and find that positive light, because we all have a light inside of us, but find that positive light, and don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of people I ran into are afraid to ask for help. They're ashamed, they're embarrassed. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And I would say, um, I'm not even going to say stay strong, because strength is built. So just find that positive light, and connect with that person, and and ask for help. Ask for help in any area it is. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's boys, if it's drugs, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, ask for the help, and um, seek that positive individual out, because they're out there. I'm out there, and I'm looking for those that are hurting. I'm looking for those.
Thank you, thank you. We definitely appreciate you in the city and the community. We need people like you who just reaching out to help anybody. You don't have to know, just whoever needs the help. And Thanks for being that resource and thanks for being that light when people need it. We definitely appreciate you and
Absolutely.
love the books you're doing. Love what's coming next. Thank you again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Bo. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope someone's been truly blessed and continue to be blessed with Silence No More. She is going to be continuing on. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Hey, thank you. Have a good day. Stay safe.
You too.
Hey.
Bye.